You are blessed beings indeed. I am that one that you know as Jesus. One of the things that we want you to understand at this time is that the boring message that we have had for a very, very long time is enacting itself more and more obviously now. When you look at the interesting events that are happening in North America at this time, we want you to understand that this is a concerted effort to slow down the ascension and make you afraid. The way your news cycles work at this time is that they are global, and people are informed of disasters all the way on the other side of the world. And so this, for those of you in Europe, for example, you may feel that this is not relevant to you. But we will tell you that the disasters that are happening in Europe are being broadcast all over the world as well, so that people in North America know that there are issues in Germany, that there are issues in England. So there is a constant back and forth of fearful information if you have not been trained. Now, we know that you all have been trained. And our message for the new year and Christmas this year was this: do not let what is going on in the world frighten you. It is very, very important now, more than ever, for your Course in Miracles training to be utilized. This is what your training was implemented for. This is why A Course in Miracles was brought through at this time. Now, the course itself was brought through 50 years ago, but it takes time for systems to be developed, for books to be published, for teachers to be trained, for information to travel around organically. You've got to remember that the Course in Miracles was not commercially available. It was not advertised on television. The way you market products now is very, very different than the way products were marketed in the 1980s. It was done organically, and it was done organically for a reason. The people that were ready for A Course in Miracles had to find it organically. They had to choose it using their free will. They could not be pressured into it. So many of the teachers that have been teaching A Course in Miracles for 30 or 40 years, they were on the leading edge of disseminating this information. And if you think about life before the internet, there were not global ways of transmitting this information. This being was given this job at a time when the global information system was ramping up. And of course, now it is in full tilt boogie, as you say. It is in full tilt boogie. That means that even people in the remotest poor villages in Africa have cell phones now, and they have access to information. And so the information that you have received and the training and practice that you have been doing is most important now, because you now are the ones who are not going to fall for the propaganda. But we do have to say here that because of your COVID-19 experience and the revelations of corruption that have been revealed over time, and our dear one here is feeling very happy that she was able to contribute to the warnings that were given out at that time. We felt a wave of energy come up inside her just now, where she was so grateful that she was given that assignment to warn people about what was happening. So the revelations that are now being revealed, they weren't revealed in 2020, they are coming out now into the mainstream. This is part of the awakening process. We have told you the old system is going to fall, and it's going to fall in that form that you call a positive feedback loop, which is the more people that distrust the systems that are revealing themselves to be untrustworthy, the quicker they will fall, because they are not getting your energy anymore. This is the most important thing for you to recognize as you are being given visuals from riots or court cases or videos of buildings burning, that this is the old falling. And it does not mean that you cannot have compassion for those human experiences, the difficult human experiences that people are having. But what is being revealed yet again, for example, in California, is governmental corruption and interference and incompetence. So as difficult as the California fires are, and there are other layers to that that we won't go into at this time, we want you to keep your mind on your prize, which is your frequency. But there are going to be massive repercussions politically from this massive disaster. As awful as it looks, and it is awful for all of those individual people who have lost furniture and family and homes, the positive result is going to be obvious in a year or two. And even now, the governmental corruption, the processes through which the local governments and the state governments have neglected their duties and have been taking money hand over fist from people. Again, we told you a little while ago that the world is so much wealthier than you believe because the corrupt systems are taking your money in credit card interest and taxes and these kinds of things. You're losing 50, 60, 70% of your income. That is happening in spades in California, one of the richest environments that governments can suck dry. This is what is going to come to light. And the corruption stories that are happening in England, for example, that are being brought to light by the billionaire that you find so confusing, these are the systems of corruption. Again, the same thing, year after year of evidence that the governments are taking your money, telling a story, and people are suffering deeply because, let's put it this way, the rats are winning the rat race at this time. But the revelation, the revealing, the seeing of the corruption is going to further feed this positive feedback loop, which is the global population is coming to see that they cannot trust their governances. They are coming to see that evil is afoot, we will say, and they are coming to see that they need to do more work themselves. So part of this process is the realization on the ordinary person's part that this idea of waiting for the government to fix a problem is a waste of time. And that self-empowerment now through gathering together in your local community, for example, these are the ways of the future. And we want to let you know, these are the ways of the future. You are going to see many, many governments collapsing through this withholding of energy by the populace that voted them in, because they are beginning to see the truth of the matter. And this is the ascension process. For those of you who are Course in Miracles students, we do not want you to see the collapsing and panic. We do not want you to see the shenanigans or the last-ditch efforts of power structures trying to maintain their control as fearful. This is not what we want you to do. We want you to feel your own vital life force, feel your own creativity, get to work on your projects, whatever those passion projects are. Every one of you has a project that has been assigned to you, believe it or not. Every single one of you has a project that has been assigned to you. It could be a spiritual hiking group. It could be a book club. It could be a gardening confederation. It could be anything. It could be a homeschooling idea that you have because you have teaching in your background and you can see the school system isn't working. Every single one of you has been given a higher purpose. And as Course in Miracles students, now is the time for you to invest in those things and to understand that as the old collapses, there has to be a new landscape that is being generated at this time by those of you that have given up on the old systems. So this is a time for all of you to remember this is the ego's playground. This is what the ascension looks like. This is what systems collapsing looks like. We will tell you here that these fires were intentionally started to create fear. And they were given with the worst of intentions to create fear, to cause panic around the climate change story. So the climate change story is what the powers that be, that won't be for very long, we will tell you, the powers that be are using to implement more control over you. So the more bad weather that can be created, the more fires that can be created, the more mysterious cloud formations that can be created, the more their story is being pumped to those uneducated beings who are not taught as well as you are. So this is what we want you to remember. However, all of you have active egos still. Remember, the ego is the part of you that believes in separation. It is the part of you that has taken the fearful stories in. It is the part of you that wants to survive physically. And so whenever it sees death and destruction, or things that may potentially create death and destruction, you will feel fear. We want you to remember that you are the fabricator of fear. Your mind manufactures fear. And when you feel fear, we want you to remember that. We want you to remember, oh, this fear is being manufactured within my ego mind because I have beliefs still about the body's survival, about being a body, about getting through a catastrophe. And that is okay. It is okay. But we want to remind you of that fact. The other fact, of course, is that when you feel awful, you are off track. You're looking at it the wrong way. So this really today is a pep talk about you remembering your eternal spiritual nature, remembering that nobody dies ever, that when large groups of people exit the planet, that they have agreed to exit the planet. Now, you will say that there is some contradiction there, that some evil force is pushing for bad things to happen, then bad things happen and people get hurt. There are no linear answers to these questions because it's not that simple. We've gone through this many times before, that from your personal ego place, it's very, very difficult to comprehend the complexity and the lessons that are contained in catastrophic events. But we have been clear. You need to get your ideas of death sorted out. You need to work through those thoughts of death and destruction and get above the battleground and look down upon the battleground, not from a place of condescension, but from a place of understanding. So you can see this war there, you can see this fire there, you can see this government scandal over there, and you are not drawn down into it. However, if you are drawn down into it, it means that there's something in you that resonates. There's something in you that still is at the frequency of fear or death or separation. And all of you have it. You are on the earth plane because you have it. So it's very important that if a particular issue, a particularly destructive war or situation draws you down into suffering, then you can say to yourself, what is the subject that has drawn me down back into the battleground? I still have some clarification to do here. And of course, that is what part of this is for, because you cannot rise into the ascension. You cannot get out of this 3D matrix without relinquishing the beliefs and ideas that you have of 3D, which is that you are a body, that you are going to sicken and get old and die, and that you can't trust people, that the weather's changing, that the earth is under threat. All of these lower 3D ideas that are constantly being pumped around your planet through your media, these are the ideas that you need to work on. And this is why at Christmas time we gave you that assignment of looking at where you are not experiencing life to its fullest capacity. What area is that? And we will reiterate, if you haven't done that homework, listen to it again and ask yourself, why am I listening to these spiritual messages if I am not doing the homework? Focus on the part of your area that is causing you distress, because that is the part of your life that is going to be triggered because it's a lower frequency. You haven't been loving it up. You haven't been focusing on it or deleting it if that is necessary. That is the part of your life that is going to come up and bite you, as you say, in the ass. If you have financial fear, that is what's going to be magnified, because it has to be magnified, because you have to figure it out before you can rise up above the battleground. That financial fear takes you down into the battleground. If you have health issues, this is where you will be triggered. This is where your ego will be triggered, telling you that you're weak, telling you can't do things, telling you you're not strong enough. Each one of you will have a subject or subjects that is in this lower 3D realm. And this is the time to deal with it. You've had enough clarification now. You've had enough pep talks from me. And as the energies escalate, the problems that you have, those areas of lack of love that you have, are going to get worse and worse and worse, and may cause many larger and more problems than they are now. So it is time to deal. It is important for you to understand that beings who are in stressful situations at this time around the planet are participating fully in the ascension process. Do not feel, and this is the most difficult application, do not feel that they are victims of the world. They are not. It looks like it, and that's how it's portrayed. But the truth of the matter is, nothing can happen to anybody unless there is a frequency match somehow to what is happening to them. Think about this. If you have wealthy people who have become deeply entrenched in materialism, if they are to participate in the ascension process, they might have to lose everything they own for them to realize that it is not the things in their life that are the most important, but the people and the love and their pets and their abilities. Many, many beings fall into the materialism trap down here because materialism is in the lower realms of 3D, lusting after material possessions. Now, this does not mean that you can't have a nice house. It doesn't mean you can't have a nice car. But what it means is it has to be a part of your life, not your entire life. And so we're throwing that out so that you understand that those beings who have lost in the last little while have this in their blueprint as part of their ascension process. So it does not mean that you cannot feel compassion for them, because some of you have lost everything and understand what a difficult thing that is to experience. But they have come into this time and place, this end of a spiritual season, to experience their own evolution. And that can be extremely difficult at the end of a spiritual season, because as we have said before, you may be assigning yourself lessons from many incarnations that are coalescing in this incarnation to tie up all those loose ends And that is what is happening to many of those beings in the fires. They are tying up loose ends that they intentionally set for themselves, just as some beings set up a catastrophic car accident. You cannot imagine being in a place of consciousness where that is what you choose. But that may be the rehabilitation process after a car accident, may be what you need to understand yourself and the world and love in a different way. So often in catastrophes, people rise up and become more loving. This is often the case. And we want you to get above the battleground here. We want you to get above the battleground. If you want to watch what's happening, that's fine. But understand that the ego loves to watch a car accident. It will tell you the story of fear and death and destruction. So that is why we're going on a little bit today, is so that you understand that this is going to continue. This is the thin edge of the wedge this year. You are going to see a lot of attempts to cause you to shut down and go into fear. Your job as Course in Miracles students and teachers is to recognize the bad feeling and understand, oh, I've gone down into the battleground. I've gone into fear. I've manufactured fear. And to do your work with it. Do not let it overwhelm you. Do not get sad. You can have compassion, which can feel like sadness, but we want you to go there briefly. We want you to say some prayers for these people that you feel are suffering. We want you to then return to your practice, which is the world is the ego's playground. And I must not get upset every time it shows itself to me.